This program is supported by Lemur Skin and Lemur Aesthetics, bringing the luxury beauty experience closer to people. SMC Global.
Welcome to Open for Business now at the CEO Summit 2022. Mapapanood nyo rin ang programang OFB sa Facebook at YouTube. Mag-like at mag-subscribe sa aming social media at Net25 TV. I am Cesar Vallejos. Welcome to Open for Business. Samahan ninyo kaming tuklasin ang iba't ibang pamamaraan kung paano mapaunlad ang inyong negosyo. Aalamin din natin mula sa mga eksperto ang mga pangunahing trends at strategiya kung paano natin mapapanatiling ang inyong negosyo, maliit man o malaki, ay maging laging open for business. Sa pagsisikap na maisulong ang mga positibong pagbabago sa bansa, lalo na sa ekonomiya at kalakalan, mahalaga ang pagsasama-sama at pagkakaisa upang makaisip ng moderno at epektibong mga paraan para lutasin ang mga suliranin sa nakaraan, sa kasalukuyan at sa ating hinaharap. Nagtipon-tipon ang mga leader ng iba't ibang business groups, kasama nga ang mga entrepreneurs at industry experts sa CEO Summit 2020 na ginanap sa Baguio Country Club. Mahigit 20 mga eksperto sa industriya ang nagbahagi ng kaalaman, mga karanasan at vision para sa hinaharap ng ekonomiya ng bansa sa CEO Summit 2022. Dumalo ang mahigit 300 participants mula sa iba't ibang panig ng bansa sa 4-day summit. 4 na mahalagang layunin ang nasa agenda ng summit: opportunities for growth, transformative leadership, collaborative governance, and the future of smart cities. All these in this episode of Open for Business.
Siguradong magulo na naman yung mga tao niyan sa halalan.
Naku, ang problema ko nga, paano kaya kami boboto ng tatay kong senior na? Ako, buntis pa. Pwede pa kaya kami?
Pwedeng-pwede. Para hindi kayo mahirapan, may nakalaang express lane para sa senior citizens at sa buntis na butante.
May express lane ba sa mga senior citizen?
Express lane para sa mga buntis na tulad ko?
Oo, merong express lane. Mas mahalagang magtanong muna bago pumila kung saan-saan.
Wow, thank you Dahil dyan pabili nga ng balot mo.
Ay, oh, sige po, siyempre. Pero, buntis at senior citizens po muna. Sige po, meron po tayo rito balot. Mainit. Para sa karagdagang kaalaman, makipag-ugnayan lang sa pinakamalapit na barangay o bisitahin ang COMELEC website.
A public service message of Net25 for Mata ng Halalan 2022. Matatag, matapang, matapat. In cooperation with Gapan Drug.
We're still covering the CEO Summit 2022, and with me is Angelo Valdez. Angelo, there's a lot of people, a lot of participants who are telling me that you did a bold move in doing this CEO Summit 2022. What's your reaction on that?
Actually, we're very thankful. We are supported by the government, especially here in Baguio City. We have the PIL export, we have the DTI, and of course Philippine Chambers, and surprisingly we have kind delegates coming from Manila, all the way from Visayas, and I think it's post-pandemic, so it's the right time to really move into digital transformation. At the same time, of course, human touch is so important. That's why they are very excited to meet all of these businessmen, of course, the government to share the past and the upcoming projects. That's why we have Mayor Magalong sharing all this initiative that will transform not only the city but the economy. And we are thankful, of course, to our participants, and thank you for Net 25 for joining us, and looking forward for next year.
I was speaking with a lot of participants. They were very happy with what they have so far heard. One of the interesting topics that they really appreciated was digital transformation, leadership also, and of course, blockchain technology. Are these really the hot topics? Is this, what was the process that you do to make sure that this topics will be the ones that are really interesting for the participants now, especially as some people say, as we exit the pandemic?
Sure. If we all notice the value of technology is to innovate and, of course, help the community, right? And being in a smart city, the first in the country, which is Baguio City, this will help lots of businessmen, and I think that's the trend. And of course, end of the day, boils down to how to develop the community. You need to elevate the value of this community, elevate the micro SMEs, elevate the farmers, because end of the day, food security. Because of pandemic, only this industry or the food industry, if we don't have this one, we're all dead, right? And because of them, with the help of our micro SME, we'll be able to survive as economy.
Angelo, I think one of the highlights of my coverage here at the CEO Summit is for me to be able to speak with representatives of the farmers. Tinanong ko sila dito, yung iba sabi nila, ito yung kauna-unahan nilang pagkakataon na makadalo sa isang CEO Summit. At nagpapasalamat sila to organizations like you, which established pressbuys.ph, wherein they were able, you gave them solutions, specific solutions to their problems of oversupply. And what is your view on you helping directly the farmers and helping the MSMEs with that critical link of connecting big business with farmers and small businesses?
Actually, what we've done is more on efficiency. Put it the right process in place, and put the right efficiency to be able to elevate every single change of the business or the supply chain. And end of the day, I think there's a lot of movable parts. And during this pandemic, because of the efficiency, we managed to elevate the value of the farmers. Tumaas yung presyo ng farmers, bumaba ang consumer cost. So that's why, kasi dati, lagi sinasabi, pag sinabing supermarket, mahal. But now, we are moving on the stage whereby, pag galing sa supermarket, pwede pala, ganito pala. So, nag-elevate yung value ngayon. Now, yung problem na market before ng mga farmers, so we educate them, we open the concept to them. I mean, they are the landowners, they toil the soil, and kung wala sila, wala tayong makain. That's why, with the help of private sector in Metro Manila, with the help of business community here, we'll be able to connect it all together. It's all efficiency, actually.
Wow. I know that there's a lot of things that will be done, and this is just, again, another beginning with Harper and Hill and Angelo Valdez. What's next for Harper and Hill? And I know that you have a vision, especially with the 4IR. What is it that you will do next?
So we're moving into, there's a lot of upcoming projects because of this event. We have the coming Blockchain World Summit, and it will be here in the Philippines. It's now a Republic Act. And I think we have the government, we have the private sector working all together to be able to put a right commercial value. So other countries will start coming to Philippines and invest. At the same time, of course, micro SMEs, pill export, mabubuhay na. And because of this business-to-business event, we have CFO Summit, we have the Blockchain World Summit, we have the ASEAN HR Summit this year, and looking forward to GetNet 25 to cover the event again. Maraming salamat. And to our attendees, maraming salamat po.
Okay, final message to MSMEs. How will they survive and adapt in this as we exit the pandemic? A lot of people are saying we are going. They now see the light at the end of the tunnel. Is this true? But based on my latest discussions, also they say we say that the pandemic is over, but the pandemic's not over with us yet. So, what's your tips to MSMEs? How will they continue to survive?
Actually, in all honesty, if you think about it, based on the last pandemic, last century, now we are moving into endemic. So it's already adoption, right? And of course, life goes on. But end of the day, we are ready. I think micro SMEs, field exports are ready to move their business to the next stage, moving into different market regionally, Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao, and of course, moving into ASEAN region. And I think that's the only way, and that's the direction that is on par and aligned with the government, private sector, and the community.
That's the man of the hour of the CEO Summit 2022, Angelo Valdez. I was listening to your speech a while ago, and as one of the key speakers, you provided great insights on what companies have experienced, like us, the pains that they have to go through. In summary, Bob, what were the key takeaways that you felt resonated with the CEOs who attended here?
Well, I think it's adapting to the change during the pandemic, the quick response of the pharma industry. Because what happened was that during the lockdown, um, well, the base kasi of our revenue generating is through the calls with the doctors. And during the lockdowns, they were not allowed. No visitors in the hospitals, no calls to the doctors. So what we did, what the pharma industry did was that they adapted to the change by doing Zoom meeting with doctors. Everything was virtual. But the good thing there is that the doctors accepted that. And doctors actually were very much open to doing virtual meetings with the pharma companies.
That's very interesting because everyone, every members of the family household have to go through teleconsulting during that time.
Right.
My family and all the members of my family experienced that. So, do you think even with the face-to-face consultations now, these Zoom meetings, these teleconsultations would still continue? And what do you think? Is there going to be a hybrid strategy when it comes to face-to-face interactions and telecommuting?
Okay. In my talk a while ago, I made mention that in a study done in Asia, okay, teleconsultation has been accepted. And the acceptance of the teleconsultation actually increased during the pandemic. In fact, during the pandemic, there were a lot of doctors who did not hold clinics. However, some doctors made use of apps for teleconsultation. So yung apps na naging available actually made their way to the healthcare professionals. Now, the question here is it going to continue? Now, based on that 5-country study done in Asia, it will continue. And probably, as they said, how doctors will do consultations or the teleconsultations will definitely change. The acceptance is high. Kaya lang, I said it's going to be hybrid. Why? Because there are still some doctors who would want to do face-to-face. And, oo naman, especially now na alert level 1, okay, everybody wants to go back to the clinics. And there are patients who would rather do face-to-face. Ngayon, ang sabi ko nga doon sa talk ko kanina, yung iba nga, post-surgery, ang follow-up is through Zoom. Okay? And I've seen that. So, less exposure. Kasi during pandemic, nobody wanted to be exposed. because of the virus. Pero ngayon, nagiging hybrid yan. Some doctors will want to continue teleconsultations, but others will want to do the face-to-face.
Bob, during the pandemic, there's a lot of dependency on a lot of things that are medical. And of course, we know for a fact that with the gainers and losers in various sectors, I'm sure pharma is one of the biggest gainers with all the vaccines that are being developed elsewhere, and also with the many research and development on various health products. Without you mentioning, of course, your revenue, so what is your outlook of the pharma industry, and what other developments are you looking at, in terms of really arresting what could be the next pandemic? Because there's a lot of talk again of new boosters, new vaccines, or how ready is the pharma industry and how profitable it is. Maybe you can cite some global figures on how you think this will continue to grow, and also for consumers like us, would we be more confident na baka isang vaccine lang okay na or dalawa na lang, tama na yon?
Okay, let me first address the impression that the public has on the pharma industry. Kasi ang sabi nila, basta pharma ka, you're doing extremely well. Okay? That will depend on the portfolio that you have. Okay? Some companies did extremely well. Some companies had to suffer. Okay?
Because of the menu of their...
Yeah, because of the portfolio. For example, I mentioned earlier during my talk, yung vitamin C with zinc. Some companies who had the vitamin C with zinc, they were not that big. No? Pero, yun ang essentials during the pandemic. What happened? So, in fact, there was a company I was talking to selling about 100 million of vitamin C with zinc in 2019. Pero pagdating ng mid of 2020, it will be more than double. Probably 5 times more, right? What happened to the other pharma companies? If your portfolio were not the essentials, you had to suffer. Example, yung mga ibang antibiotics for kids especially, wala namang nagkakasakit na bata during the pandemic. Why? Because they were not going to schools. They were not in malls. So there was very minimal infection for the children. Halos walang nagkakasakit na bata. So what happened was some companies had to restructure because of this. Some companies had to expand because of the portfolio that they had. So, ang nangyari ngayon, a lot of the pharma companies are revisiting the portfolio that they have and thinking of ways how to expand it. So, makikita mo ngayon, some of the companies now, their business and development departments or the business and development people of these companies will look now on ano bang produkto ang pwede nating i-launch in the coming years with what happened in the pandemic. You're right sa sinabi mo, baka meron na namang bagong lalabas. So, probably after, di ba, nag-coronavirus tayo, nag-Delta, biglang nung January, everything was doing good, biglang nag-Omicron naman. So, what? The question there is, how long will this continue? Baka may magbabago na naman. And you mentioned about vaccines. No? Of course, the vaccines company are doing well because it's now becoming like, di ba dati meron tayong mga antivirus na tinitake. Mga bata, yung every year may flu shots ka. And for how long do we continue the COVID shots or the boosters? We don't know yet. That will depend on the government or that will depend on authorities abroad on ano yung magiging regimen for us to protect ourselves from the coronavirus or the COVID. So that's how it is. No?
But talking about the vaccine, Bob, do you have insight on the preparedness of Filipino scientists as well, because we know that, of course, we have world-class doctor scientists who are also can develop our own vaccine. Is that also something that is possible, and is government really supporting this?
Yung vaccines to be developed locally, I'm not sure, no, and I don't want to speak for the government on this one. But based on my experience, usually kasi ang research, especially like researchers like this, are done basically with the multinational companies. Kung titignan mo naman, ang Philippines, wala namang talagang companies who do research. No?
Yung mga multinationals, they will subcontract it here in the Philippines. I think that
Okay.
is one.
In terms of Philippines' involvement in researches like this, no, the truth is, a lot of the research done outside of the Philippines, or yung, let's say, being done by one multinational, involved naman ang Philippines dyan eh. So they would pick a certain number of patients from the Philippines, and this will form part of a study which is part of a global study. So we are always involved there. Ang Philippines lagi naman kasama dyan. Because, alam mo naman, I used to work with the multinationals. So lagi namang sinasama ang Pilipinas in most of the major studies.
How do you assess this kind of gathering after 2 years? We're here face-to-face mingling with CEOs. What is your assessment so far based on the turnout of the opening ceremonies of this, the first half of day one? And what are your expectations? And what good will happen here at the CEO Summit?
Okay. First, no, I think it was a bold move by Harper and Hill, by Jello, to do such a face-to-face. This is a CEO summit, no? I think the last one they did was virtual, pero to have a face-to-face. This is my first face-to-face conference that I'm attending, and I think we will. Ang takeaway dito marami after this 2-day meeting. The people involved here are from different industries, but mostly mga fintech guys to, technology guys. Ako lang yung medyo naligaw dito because I'm a pharma guy. But I think the digitalization transition, because that's the theme of our conference here, everybody will, after this conference, we'll have something that yung takeaway natin dito is going to be something really beneficial for each of the companies.
Thank you so much. That's Bob Segovia. We are now at day 3 of the CEO Summit 2022 here at the Baguio Country Club, and with me is the President and General Manager of ADP Philippines, Amar Sedu. How are you, Amar?
I'm very good. Thank you for having me on your show.
We heard a lot of new trends, new technologies, and new insights with the CEO Summit. So far, what are your key takeaways?
Oh, lots of ones. It's my first time here at the CEO Summit. My first time. I've been in the country for only 1 year in the Philippines, expat from Canada. So far, lots of great speakers, amazing learning. But if I had to pick sort of top 3, I think the AirAsia was amazing what they're doing for client experience, click, point, touch, and I think that was pretty amazing. John Aguilar from Dragon's Nest, what he's doing for entrepreneurs all over the Philippines, that was also amazing. And today, cryptocurrency caught my attention. It was very interesting that even jeepney drivers are taking cryptocurrency. That is quite the advancement in digital world, I would say.
Okay, going back to the first key takeaway you mentioned about the many innovations presented by AirAsia. So far, he talked about digital transformation.
Yeah.
How do you think would your company and even small businesses embrace digital transformation? And how is it now in the context of the pandemic? We all know that there are still threats of disruption because of COVID-19.
Right, that's a great question. So we're in the payroll business, payroll and human resource management business. And I think for us, it's digital has always been a big priority. We have a lot of R&D dollars every year going into digital. Generally speaking, people want to get paid their way, not the company's way. So some people want weekly, some want daily, some want bi-weekly. And everybody wants their payroll to be correct, first of all. So that's the number one thing about digital is take away the human error factor, which we've been working towards. And the other one is really around the mobile. This has really become the big thing. People want to be able to see their pay stubs right in that palm of their hand. And that's also more advancements that ADP globally has been doing as well. So you don't have to wait for the old-fashioned paper pay stubs and things of that nature, though. So that's how we're embracing it, moving it forward. And it's a journey for sure. It's a journey, not a sprint. But the takeaways from what we're seeing here, the end user, in my mind, is the most important. Even when you're doing corporate to corporate, the end user, the person getting their paycheck, the person getting their benefits, the person that's doing their booking, those are the people that you really need to make an impact on, though. That's our destiny.
With your exposure now here at the Philippines, how do you find the Filipino workers? I know that you've been doing it via Zoom, but hopefully this is the year that you will be starting mingling with the Filipino workers.
Yeah. Well, here's what I've already found. So we don't have a official return to office yet, but I did open the office for anyone that wants to use it on a voluntary basis. The day I did it, 300 Filipinos poured into the office voluntarily because they miss the interaction. They miss the interaction with their co-workers. What I find about Filipinos, first of all, hearts are so big you cannot measure the size of a Filipino's heart. So that's number one. Two, the commitment, dedication, to wanting their company to do very well. The loyalty factor is huge here in the Philippines. So it's a very attractive quality. I personally love the Philippines culture for that factor. And then the fact that all Filipinos love to have fun, go out and do karaoke and eat and be social. It's a really big thing. So I take that into consideration in the new world as well. How do I make sure that that culture is not lost with this return to office? And in the blended world, games rooms, very mandatory. Breaks to be done in a way where you can actually go do something in the mall. And functions, before, after work functions. All of these things mean a lot to the Filipino community. And if we can deliver that, I think it's going to be a great return to office strategy for us, for sure.
Wow, that's a great insight. But Amar, before I let you go,
yes.
So far, what's your assessment of the CEO Summit? Because a lot of participants are telling me this is a bold move. Yeah. This is probably one of the first and one of the largest business leaders under one roof during at the end as we exit the pandemic.
Yes, I too am on that same boat as well. So I was, first of all, pleasantly surprised to get the invitation because the first thing, I had to reread it 3 times to make sure, is it in person in Baguio or is it hosted in Baguio and everyone's going to be just via Zoom or something? So when I read it 3 times, yes, for sure, I was pleasantly surprised. I'm very, very happy with what the summit's all about and bringing very senior people together, amazing speakers, great education sessions. I'm very impressed. This is the first one here in the Philippines, but you should be proud to know it's also the first one from back home. Even nobody in Canada has yet had an on-site conference yet, though. So Philippines beat Canada to it, though. So I'm very proud of that.
Wow. That's Amar Siduda, President and General Manager of ADP Philippines. Open for Business is covering the CEO Summit 2022 here at the Baguio Country Club. And with me is Mr. Jun Ocol Jr., the CEO and co-founder of Agraba Ventures. Kumusta kayo, Jun?
Okay naman po. Thank you for having me here, Cesar.
It's really an interesting discussion because of your ventures in agriculture. And
Yes.
Offline, we were talking about how long this venture is, and you said it's now on its 3rd year, which is
Yes.
very surprising because the last 2 years was really the height of the pandemic and the COVID-19 lockdowns. How did you survive, and what were happening with the farmers with your venture?
So basically, we started as a startup. So we have only an idea, and we were incubated at the Asian Institute of Management, Dado Banato Incubator, as one of their startup. So we have this platform, but it's very hard for us to show everyone that it can be scalable. But when the pandemic happened, that's the time we scaled. We scaled so fast that on an average, we are shipping around 50 to 100 metric tons of raw dried seaweed from the Bicol region going to Metro Manila. And this seaweed are processed and turned into karajinan. So when everyone is closing, the farmers are growing their production during the pandemic.
Can you tell us what were the strategies that you use for you to be able to continue developing, what you have envisioned for the startup?
Yeah, it was really a challenge when the pandemic started. So what we did is we collaborate with other startup as well. We talked to them. We formed the Philippine Agri Consortium, which is composed by those players in the agriculture value chain. So we tried to collaborate. So if you remember, when the height of the pandemic, there's like veggie pack distribution in Metro Manila. So that's our group. So we collaborated with different startups. So we ship agri-produce from Bicol, from Benguet, from other parts of the Philippines to Metro Manila because Metro Manila has no food back then. So I think the key to what we're doing is collaborating. So we cannot really just be a sole player in the industry. We have to acknowledge that there's different parts in it, and we need to collaborate with those players as well.
Yeah, that's a very good insight, June, to collaborate and to realize that you don't compete. But you have to work together so that the whole industry will survive. What was the process in that collaboration? Was there with a consortium? Was it born during the pandemic because of that need, or you really had plans of really coming up with a consortium, or you somehow realized that, as you mentioned, if you still compete with each other, everybody will die?
Yeah, the consortium was formed several months before the lockdown.
So talagang eksakto lang
it's
din.
really timely. So we're not even expecting that it's gonna be lockdown in few months. But we already met. So after the lockdown, we met online via Zoom, and we discussed how can we send food there in Manila. So we're in Bicol, and some of our partners are also in the province, and there are some startup who are already in Manila. So we talk about the logistics, how are we gonna coordinate with the IATF, and how much food are we gonna send. So it becomes a natural collaboration between the stakeholders.
We have the audience, small businesses also, would-be entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs. If you can share your tips as well, so that they too can survive the pandemic, that's still happening around us.
Yeah. Hi everyone. So I guess the key message I could give you guys is don't stop learning. So if you're curious about something, try to find a solution on every problem that you have, and solve those problems using tech or innovation, so that you could also build your own startup. Also, it is very important that you acknowledge that there are other players in the industry, and it's up to you whether how you would approach it, collaborate with them, grow with them, or compete with them. So for us, we just choose collaboration. So I guess that's what I can advise to other MSMEs.
this is not attended only by micro, small, and medium enterprises, but also representatives of educational institutions like the University from Laguna. For the record, Dr. Naro, can you introduce yourself and the company that you represent?
Good afternoon. I am Dr. Naro Navarro. I am the head of linkages of National University in Laguna.
Dr. Naro, so far, what are your key takeaways in today's in the last 2 days of this summit?
So basically, we understand that there's a huge gap between the industry needs and what the academic institution could provide. So we wanted to build that gap through this kind of partnership, through this kind of networking. That is why we decided to attend the CEO Summit.
With the agenda, there's transformative leadership, there's digital transformation, and also we also learned about blockchain technology. Are these concepts that you think is also something that educational institutions must really incorporate in their system so that institutions, schools will be more competitive?
Yeah, I believe this kind of technologies right now, like the digital transformation, cryptocurrencies, academic industry linkage, should be really incorporated in the academic institutions program. Especially, we have really to invite this industry to be able to help us craft our curriculum so that there will be really a connection, a good connection between what the industry needs and what the academic institution is teaching right now.
During the pandemic, Dr. Naro, talagang nahihirapan din ang mga estudyante natin. Hindi lang estudyante, kundi nahihirapan ang mga teachers then, because I know that not all of them are techie, di ba? So how are teachers, the members of the faculty coped with this situation, and how do you assess the online education so far, and are we into that area where you will now, your university is ready for face-to-face interaction?
Yeah, actually, fortunately, we are very lucky because we have good IT guy. We have good IT people that we're able to establish. We call it My School. We call it My Space. We call it My Place. And these are all the things that are utilized by the students during their transition from pre-pandemic up to the new normal. So they were able to really study better. Modules are provided there, teachers are going to log in there, and in fact, in partnership with Microsoft, we were able to develop these programs for the students. And now that we are transitioning to the new normal again, so the school is being retrofitted right now, I believe we are 100% ready to be on the face-to-face mode again.
Do you think there should be some refinements or reform that should be done by our educational system, by the support of the government, to ensure that even if there is another round of pandemic, schools, universities will be ready for it?
Yeah, I believe the government as the regulator should really impose academic institutions and industries to go to work hand in hand, to partner really, because sometimes the industry is having a different foresight to what is really happening at the academic institution. So I believe the collaboration is really the key for the success of these initiatives.
We know that the millennials now, the academic sector, they're very online, but what is it in terms of their behavior, in terms of consumer changes, consumer behavior changes that you think have they developed as they went through the pandemic? Nagbago ba yung mga gusto nila? Nagbago ba yung mga gusto nilang pag-aralan? And what are the changes as far as interests are concerned?
Yeah, I believe in terms of being a millennial, the generations right now, they are more tech savvy. That is why all the gadgets really are there. They are all buying these gadgets, and I think the connection with the items, the connection with the brand, should be there for the millennials to really buy that.
Okay, thank you so much. That's Dr. Naro Navarro of the National University of Laguna. Kasama natin ngayong araw na ito ang mga representatives ng mga organisasyon ng mga magsasaka dito sa Baguio. Pwede po bang ipakilala ninyo ang inyong sarili at ang organisasyon na inyong kinabibilangan?
Ako po si Esther Caga, Chairman ng La Trinidad Organic Practitioners Multipurpose Cooperative.
Ako po si Marilu Saltico from La Trinidad Organic Farmers Association. Marketing officer po ako.
Alam nyo, napakaraming mga problema ng mga magsasaka lalo na noong pandemic. At dahil alam natin na napakarami kayong mga naging problema rin noong panahon ng pandemic. Pero doon sa Manila at sa mga ibang mga lugar pa, lalo na yung mga urban areas, kami naman ang mga naghihintay ng mga pagkain at mga produkto doon. Ano ba yung mga challenges o naging problema nyo noon at sabihin natin hanggang ngayon dahil patuloy pa rin naman ang pandemya?
Ang problema namin noong pandemic, marami kaming production pero wala ngang sasakyan na magta-travel doon at saka lahat ng mga tao nasa bahay nila, walang lumalabas na bibili. Kaya ang ginawa lang namin nang nag-offer ang municipal officials na mag-access sila ng mga gulay para ibibigay sa mga apektado ng pandemic, nagbigay ang association namin.
Kayo,
Nung panahon po ng pandemic, talagang tsamba po na maraming supply. So ang farmer nag-text, problema namin yung ganito, ganyan. Sa mga small scale po na farmers, wala po silang sasakyan. Mostly ang gamit po is public transport, ganyan. So hindi po accessible ang public transportation nung time na yun. So yung mga farmer nag-adjust na ibenta sa kapitbahay, ganun po.
So, halimbawa, dahil may problema tayo sa transportasyon noon at logistics. So, mabuti na lang dahil yung community ninyo, sabi nyo nga, doon na nagbentahan. Pero ano ang nangyari noon? Ano ba ang mga produkto ninyo na maaaring nasira? Ano ba yung mga produce na itinatanim ng mga magsasaka?
Lahat ng mga gulay kasi kami hindi isang gulay lang ang tinatanam namin. Halos lahat ng mga sangkap ng pagkain tinatanim namin para pag bibili sila, lahat na nandun, pang chapsoy, pang adobo, pang igado, ganon, meron. At saka may herbs pa kami. Yung iba hindi na nag-harvest, nabubulok na lang sa garden. Yung iba naman na malapit dito sa Trinidad, yun, nilalakad na lang yung daan, papunta lang sa market namin para at least yung mga lumalabas may mabibili sila. Kasi sa Trinidad, maraming mga tao doon ang health conscious. Kahit mahal, binibili kasi walang ang pesticide yun eh.
Kasi organic. At yun ang pagkakaiba ng produkto na ito. Okay, for my final question, kasi marami, sinabi ni ma'am kanina na marami nang nagiging health conscious na mga tao. So dahil maraming health conscious, ang binibili nila ay organic. Diba? So ibig sabihin, pag organic, hindi ito nangangailangan ng mga fertilizers at maging healthy, di ba? Parang nakakasexy ng katawan. So ano ba yung pagkakaiba pa, ano yung benefits ng mga organic na vegetables na inilalako ninyo?
Ang mga benefits na pag yung mga celery, sabi nila para sa cancer, parang nadudugtungan naman yung mga buhay nila kasi naghahanap sila ng celery pag walang supply.
Para sa akin po, mas maigi po na piliin natin yung kinakain natin. Dapat po organic kasi po mas malaki yung tulong nito sa katawan natin. And at the same time po kami din na farmers, hindi na po kami bumibili ng yung sa labas, yung produkto na po namin ang binibili namin. Kasi alam namin na healthy and safe.
Ano po ang masasabi ninyo sa CEO Summit 2022 na sa kabila ng pagkakakulong natin sa ating mga bahay ay ngayon lumabas tayo at may CEO Summit na ganito. Ano ang mensahe nyo sa CEO Summit at sa kay organizers katulad ni Angelo Valdez?
maganda nga at naimbitahan kami. Masaya-saya kami kasi ngayon lang kami nakalahok ng mga ganitong klase ng mga tao na kahit kami mga farmer pwede kaming makilahok sa kanila at mabuhay ang CEO Summit.
Ganda ng message ni Ma'am.
Thankful po kami sa gumawa ng event na ganito kasi kami pong mga farmers ay nakaka-meet up ng mga ibang tao na maaaring tumulong sa amin or yung pwede pang ma-upgrade yung aming kaalaman sa mga iba't ibang sa iba pang industriya. So, yun lang ang thankful lang po kami na nakadalo kami dito.
And that is our conversation with our leaders of the organizations, of the federations of farmer organizations here in Baguio. And Open for Business will be back. Stay with us.
Sisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka naming tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. Mailalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Hindi lingid sa atin ang kahirapang dinaranas ng marami sa ating mga kababayan. Mula kasi sa mga artikulo sa pahayagan hanggang sa mga programa sa telebisyon at posts online, makikita natin ang iba't ibang larawan ng kahirapan sa Pilipinas. Marahil nakapanood na kayo ng informal settlement sa gilid ng mga estero, mga pamilyang walang choice kundi mag-ulam ng tuyo o asin, mga batang napipilitang magtrabaho sa murang edad o mga lolo o lolang nanlilimos sa kalsada. Sa dulo pa ng ilang palabas, may ipapaskil pa na telephone number para makapag-ambag o mag-donate ang mga manonood. Ngunit, alam nyo bang problematic ang ilang paglalarawan ng media sa mga nangangailangan? Surely there's a market demand for sensational human stories and the graphic representation of misery and suffering. Based on a 2018 study, viewers spend more time watching stories with sensational production features such as those with emotive music on sets and decorative edits. Sa pagpukaw ng media sa emosyon at reaksyon ng mga tumatangkilik, tumataas ang readership, TV rating o online engagement na natatanggap nito. It all started in the 1980s at ang tawag ng iba dito ay poverty porn, which was dubbed a golden age of charity campaigns, using hard-hitting and heartbreaking images such as those of malnourished children with flies in their eyes was successful in raising money for charity. So it quickly became a trend. However, this approach leads to the exploitation and the humanization of communities in distress. The ongoing coverage of the Russia-Ukraine crisis by the Western media is a good case in point, as it has been allegedly packaging Ukrainians' most vulnerable moments as commodities to be consumed by Western audiences. The Western media also drew flack for shaping the narrative to suit its own objectives. Critics were quick to point out that by presenting heartbreaking photos and videos, the Western media has manipulated public sentiment in hopes of silencing the real facts of the war and asking for donations from the pity-ridden public. Sa isang banda, nakatutok umano ang field reporting ng Western media sa pagbabaon ng mahalagang isyo at pagpapatunay na kontrabida ang Russia. Ilan nga raw sa mga tanong na hindi pa rin nito napagtutuunan ng pansin ay kung ano ba talaga ang agenda at interes ng US sa pagsuporta at sponsor sa Kyiv at kung may lehitimong batayan ba ang paranoia ng Russia ukol sa pagpapalawak ng NATO, isang military alliance ng mga kanluraning bansa. On the other hand, concerns were expressed regarding the mainstream media's portrayal of the refugees as helpless beneficiaries and the donors as saviors. This portrayal reinforces unequal power dynamics. When used by individuals, businesses, and organizations, it shines a spotlight on themselves for ego and self-promotion instead of fostering a genuine love and compassion for humanity. Such misrepresentation of misery and poverty has also been observed back home. Here in the Philippines, communities barely surviving through hunger and disasters are often romanticized by the media as a proof of Filipino resiliency. Although this presentation is positive on the surface, it avoids addressing the real structural problem of poverty and risk management. May nakikita ring problema sa marketing materials na nagpapakita sa kalunos-lunos na kalagayan ng mga mahihirap at humihingi ng tulong pinansyal para sa kanila. Ayon kay Emily Ronick, tinatanggalan nito ng dignidad ang mga nasa litrato at pinatitibay nito ang paniniwala nila na tanging mayayaman lang ang makapagpapaangat sa kanilang buhay at kabuhayan. Aniya, bagamat nakatutulong ang pagbibigay ng financial support at material resources sa mga nangangailangan, mahalagang alalahanin na hindi lamang ito ang solusyon sa kahirapan. In fact, people experiencing poverty also define it as psychological and emotional suffering. Therefore, the media and the general public are encouraged to share stories, photos, and videos that promote a deeper understanding of the multifaceted nature of poverty. It's equally necessary to push for the structural changes that must occur to effectively address it. This is way more helpful and impactful than having the sole purpose of eliciting an emotional experience and ultimately money. Stay tuned to Open for Business as we deliver facts and insights related to those at the hem in international affairs. Open for Business will be back.
Bank of Commerce. What we are is personal banking, where we understand that every deposit is your hard-earned money. Every loan is for good reason. Every service aids in your convenience. Every business of ours is meant to grow yours. We hear you, feel you, and we act on your every banking need. Bank of Commerce, an affiliate of San Miguel Corporation.
Sa puti ako! Larga!
Pula, sa puti. Anong kaguluhan to? Masama ang sugal. At eleksyon ngayon, kaya bawal yan.
Ayon sa Omnibus Election Code, ang pag-organisa ng mga perya, sabong, boxing o kahit anong kaganapan na may sugal ay isang election offense.
Pwede yan! Nagre-relax lang naman kami.
Bukod sa masama ang sugal, importante din sa alala ng ating buong atensyon. Dapat hindi tayo nadidistract ng mga panalo ko!
Pakawalan niyo ako! Hindi na ako uulit!
Ako si Mr. Bawal na nagpapaalala sa inyo na ang sugal, election man o hindi, huy! Bawal yan!
A public service message of Net25 for Mata ng Halalan 2022. Matatag, matapang, matapat.
Kaisa ang Net25 sa pagsusulong ng moderno at epektibong business solutions, lalo na sa tinatawag na new normal o next normal, kung saan bagaman nariyan pa rin ang banta ng COVID-19 ay nananatili ang Pilipinas na open for business. Maraming salamat sa panonood ng Open for Business. Thank you to our interviewees from the CEO Summit 2022. Samahan ninyo kaming muli sa Open for Business sa susunod na linggo. Learn more insights from CEOs, thought leaders, industry experts, and SMEs promoting business development in the Philippines. Keeping you informed and open for business, be ahead of the curve from vision to action. Panoorin din ang programang OFB sa Facebook at YouTube. Mag-like at mag-subscribe sa aming social media at Net25 TV. Para sa Open for Business, ako po si Cesar Vallejo.